Well, indeed, we are, Leanne. Welcome back to Gallagher Convention Centre. And of course, just after we lost the sound, we lost the lights. But hey, all's well that ends well. So we're back. I'm still in conversation with the former CEO of the Human Rights Commission, Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane. Advocate, thanks so much for your patience and staying with us. So we were reflecting on some of the successes and the challenges in Chapter 9 institutions. And I just want to pick up on the point you made about the Public Protector's Office, as well as the Human Rights Commission and the work that has been done there. So if one listens to general reflections from the public, and you basically would hear people's sentiment that they feel that perhaps sometimes, if you take the Human Rights Commission, the Commission is perhaps more reactive for the public's liking. So let's talk about that and also reflect on what does it mean for constitutional, for the Constitution and its implementation in South Africa when the officers are perhaps not as strong as they ought to be?
No, certainly, the criticism is quite valid. The Commission is actually a very small organization with about 200 people, serving a population of about 60 million. And therefore, will always not be there at every corner in the country. But certainly, the Commission does need to, to think through as to how it could also become much more, not reactive, but more forward-looking and more responsive to the needs of the country, and also working much better with government and civil society in order to extend its reach in the country. So it does require an element of reflection, but also there needs to be more funding and support for these bodies.
And I was going to pick up on the point of funding, because it's not only the Human Rights Commission. I mean, all Chapter 9 institutions have the same problem with regard to funding. The work that needs to be done vis-a-vis the budget that is at the disposal of these institutions. So at what point do we really become serious about this and say to government, we cannot achieve certain objectives and imperatives for this nation unless that funding model changes?
Yeah. Well, I think there are three levels really. One is that there needs to be a greater appreciation of these bodies by government, parliament and the executive, but also the public itself, that these institutions are very important. But thirdly, those who are involved in the running of these institutions themselves need to be much more perceptive about the role which they are playing. And therefore we think out of the box in order to advance human rights and democracy in our country.
So I'm reading a message here, and I'm actually going to touch on this with our next guest. But there's a message from Cheryl Felix and says, we as the Khoi and San people have not been allowed to attend the conference to make our input. And this is one of those issues that has been ongoing for a while. How do we become more inclusive and make sure that we actually do give a hearing to other communities that may feel that they are on the periphery of society, Advocate Tseliso?
Yeah. Well, this conference actually highlights the importance of a greater dialogue with the community about these issues. And therefore, this conference is just the beginning, not the end, of more dialogues. We have about 400 people here physically, but also are beaming to the whole nation about this conference. So definitely there is a need for greater dialogue, and we could have done better over the past 25 years. This conference actually should have happened a long time ago, but hopefully the department will continue to have more of these dialogues, because at the end of the day, the Constitution is actually a social contract. So it's about all of us as South Africans. Therefore, all of us must be engaged in our democracy and human rights.
But you see, and that, I suppose, is sometimes part of the problem. When we say the right things, we make the right noises, we touch on the right key points, but in practice, it doesn't happen. If it hasn't happened in these 25 years, what's to say it's going to happen in the next 25?
Well, they say it's never late, what is it? Never too late. So it's actually at the beginning, and definitely, and I don't think the department will backtrack on this. It's a very important initiative which must continue and be supported, and I think bodies like Chapter 9 institutions and the public must really hold government to account to ensure that this dialogue happens, because it is our constitution, it's our country.
It certainly is, but we'll leave it there, Advocate Thipanyane. Some good work that has been done much more needs to be done. And it's good to know that you are assisting out here and coming from the Human Rights Commission. I think there'd be valuable input for you from your side in terms of what needs to happen going forward. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane is, of course, the former CEO of the Human Rights Commission. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and have more reflections on 25 years of the South African Constitution and also looking ahead.